Hi, I'm Dr. Melissa Longo. Welcome to Everyday Rockstar Moms, where every episode I'll interview moms just like you who are rocking it in their homes, raising their children, managing their households, building their careers, working on their relationships, dealing with challenges, finding success, trying to find balance, and themselves along the way. Every episode you'll hear from women just like you of all ages and stages of motherhood, sharing their stories, life experiences, and leaving you with practical tips, ideas, and inspiration to help you rock your life. On today's episode, I'm chatting with Jane Schnurr. Jane is a business coach with 2 adult daughters in their 20s and 30s. Today we talked about Jane's experience as a single mom early in her life and how, although many days felt like mission impossible, she was able to make everyday experiences memorable for her daughters and raise them into the women they are today. We also discussed how Jane's experience of losing everything when she went through a difficult divorce ultimately helped her rebuild her life and think about what she really wanted, find her own power as a woman, and become an entrepreneur. Jane talks about her ritual of journaling, how it helps her feel more grounded and connected to herself, how it helps her trust her intuition more, let go of her fears, while her daughters were going through many different experiences growing up. Now that Jane's daughters are older, Jane is able to shed some wisdom on how she's been able to let go of expectations she's had for them, and also how she deals with an aging mother and nurturing both her daughters as they continue to grow into adulthood and nurture her mother. I've known Jane for over 10 years. I work with her both professionally and personally. She's helped me in so many ways, and yet there is so much wisdom that I also gained from today's episode. It's a very inspiring story. Check it out. Hi, Jane. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Melissa. I'm so excited to be here.
I think you have so much information and wisdom to share with us today from both your personal life and your professional life. Why don't you start us off with telling us a little bit about yourself and where you're at right now with your girls and career and everything you're doing right now?
Gee, that's a lot of things. Well, I guess I'd start off by saying I have 2 girls that are grown up now. My oldest is 30 and my youngest is 25. They both live in Toronto, Mississauga area, so it's very different now with grown-up girls.
I bet.
Yeah. I also do, I work as a business coach. I've been doing that now, I guess, for the last 14 years, doing business coach, and it keeps evolving and changing, and I keep growing in that. I do a lot of things, I guess, in my life to look after myself. I've really learned that over my life. I'm also the caretaker of my mom, who is now in a long-term care home, but I'm look after her and make sure she's okay. A lot of challenges and a lot of really cool things happening in my life.
That's a great way to sum it up. A lot of challenges and cool things, because it's all about perspective, isn't it?
It is. You know, it's like the salt and pepper. They go together.
Yeah.
Someone described my work in that way because I often bring a lot of humor and creativity and make things fun, but yet there's a serious side, and that's how they've described me as salt and pepper.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, life's full of that. I mean, I think, and that's one of the goals of this podcast is to highlight, the everydayness of our lives as mothers and women, and, how much more similar our experiences are. And how a lot of our struggles are often very similar. And if we can help each other, then that's all the better for everyone.
Yeah, and I think the first step in that is to be open and listen and look for some support or the ideas. They come from the most crazy places sometimes.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's talk a little bit about your experiences. And so where would you say, if you look at who you are as a mother today with adult children, what have been some of the most pivotal experiences that have shaped who you are as a mother for your girls?
Well, I guess I would start off by saying I was a single mom for a long time. I guess when my youngest was just a little baby, I was still breastfeeding her, and I knew I had to pursue a divorce. And it was really challenging. I had no idea the world I was stepping into. My oldest daughter was I guess close to 6. And my youngest was a baby, a few months old, when I started pursuing my divorce. And I was pretty naive, and it took me in a whole different direction. Everything changed in my life, and there I was with a baby and a 6-year-old. I ended up moving back to be closer to my parents, left my business that I had, and started over. I lost everything through the divorce. Everything went to legal fees, and it was kind of, I had no idea at the time it was going to turn out that way. I ended up going on welfare, lost absolutely everything, and rebuilt my life. But there is some power in rebuilding, because the second time you get to consciously choose what you want. And there is a real gift in starting over, even though it can feel like you're losing everything, because you really do. Mm-hmm. But I always had my girls, and we had a lot of fun, created a lot of memories, and boy, we grew together.
I remember you saying it in our pre-chat here that you looking back, you don't really know how you did it, but you did, right?
Oh my God, I have no idea how I did it. I had so much energy. It took so much work and energy to do it all. I was a 24/7 parent. My folks helped me out with babysitting and stuff, but still, like, all the responsibilities were up to me. I can remember the time they had chicken pox. And first one got chicken pox, so I had to keep everybody home for a week. And then I can remember, I forget what it is, a week or two later, the second one got chicken pox, and there I was, home again, right? Mm-hmm. And there was no break. There was no relief. If I had a babysitter, I had to pay for that. And of course, like, I don't want to diminish the value my folks were, because they were huge, huge help to me. Mm-hmm. But, it was, all the decisions were mine to be made, and it was challenging, challenging to fit it all in. And of course, I wanted to do everything for my kids, and didn't always look after myself.
And so when did that change?
Well, I started to learn that I can remember in the early days when Lindsay was young and at home still, I can remember exercising to the TV, because I couldn't afford to go to a gym. Mm-hmm. So I would do the workout with my TV. Mm-hmm. I can remember doing it. And I started to learn, and we started opening a new business. I had a costume and business, and I built mascots. And I started that, and slowly, because I knew I had to be there for my kids, and I wanted to be that example. I wanted to show them that we can do this. We can accomplish anything. It felt kind of like Mission Impossible at the time. Felt like Tom Cruise jumping off a tall building, but I did it anyhow. I did it, and I just kept going, even though it was scary as anything. And yeah, so it was quite a journey.
I can relate to all of that. I don't know, when my marriage ended, I was fueled by the excitement and purpose, and just knowing so deep in me that it was the right direction I needed to take my life. But I didn't know what was coming. I didn't have a business at the time. I had to rebuild everything. And I would say the exact same thing as you. I don't know what some of those moments were and how I figured them out, but one day at a time, you just figure them out. And look back now, I don't have any regrets.
Well, I think, it was quite a journey. It was a busy time. I could have settled for a career choice that would have been very different. I remember thinking I could have taken a job, and instead I chose the path that was more difficult. Was that a good choice? It's what I chose. I have no idea. But I chose to set up my own business again. It's what I had done before. So I pursued that path, because I just kind of thought, if I go the other direction, what will I be able to provide for my children? Mm-hmm. So I made some tough choices, and it was very interesting. It really, by doing that, it made me have to step up and work things out in myself. Going through the challenges that I went really stretched me as a person, hugely stretched me. Mm-hmm. I learned to be incredibly strong. I'll never ever doubt my strength again. Mm-hmm.
And so starting a new business, is that in your family? Because the entrepreneurial life is not for everyone. And certainly, when you're going through an emotional upheaval like you would have been going through with a divorce. So what was your draw to start your own business?
I think that was what I knew how to do. I just, I guess you're kind of maybe born that way, to be more in that venue, to want to work that way, as I'd already had my own business. Mm-hmm. I had a flag business in Toronto, and I'd done all kinds of very, very cool things. And in fact, when my oldest daughter was a baby, I was so naive about motherhood. I took her with me. I went back to work at 6 weeks, and I thought, oh, how hard can it be? I'll just take her with me. So, she survived it. I've got a lot of people would give me looks, when I'd had my daughter there. I can still remember toilet training her. It was quite an experience. But we got through it, and today, because of that experience, she has such an innate knowing about how business works that you couldn't teach somebody.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, I grew up, both my folks were very entrepreneurial. My mom was a real estate broker for many years in our local area, and my dad had done different self-employed things. Him and my brother had a country market for a number of years. So yeah, being entrepreneurial was something that was what we did.
I'm sure with your clients, you would coach them in this direction too. I mean, you're either born an entrepreneur and you have all those traits in you, or you've really got to work hard to develop them if it's something you absolutely want to do.
Well, I think it comes back to desire and what drives you. And maybe if you could become an entrepreneur, maybe it's not your natural thing to be an entrepreneur, but maybe you have a passion for something and that exceeds the rest. It just drives you. I think anybody can succeed as an entrepreneur if they really want to. Mm-hmm. It's like anything in life.
Yeah. So if that's what you say to your clients, so what drives you every day? Like, I always say, rock stars, they get out, they perform. Even if they're not feeling great, sometimes they get out, they give it their all. What makes you perform your best and drives you every day?
Well, I would say there's a few things. One of the things is creativity. I love being creative and creating something new all the time. Most entrepreneurs have the same challenge. It's like the yin and the yang. We love creating, and it's always about the new ideas. And really staying focused is part of the challenge with being creative. But I love being creative, having fun. I like to make the most boring things fun. And just enjoying life. I'm discovering these days that I'm getting back to more of the things that I used to really, really enjoy as a child. And those, I think, are where our true passions come from. So I'm getting back into doing a lot more creativity, artwork. I never did artwork for myself for years. So I'm back doing oil painting and I'm exploring that. I do a lot of writing now. So it's really getting back into the creativity. As a kid, I used to build lots of forts, and it's no accident that I love being outside and hiking, all those kind of things, and bringing back in some of those passions that were the natural me from long, long ago. I find that really is helpful.
And I think that's important that you share that because, as you said earlier, your girls are 25 and 30 right now. So some moms that are listening to this are, they have toddlers or infants or a bunch of kids at all different ages. And that time for themselves is not the same as it will be when their children are older, right? So what were some of your things that you did when your girls were younger, when you were in the thick of those difficult 24/7 parenthood days? To keep yourself grounded or give yourself some kind of joy?
I think what I did more for my kids because I was busy. I'd like to say I went and did all these things for myself, but I don't really think I had the time, to be very honest. Mm-hmm. But I think what I did do is make some of our everyday things more enjoyable. I can remember when my kids were pretty young, we would have different days we did things. One night of the week would be fancy dinner night. I can remember that. I would give them a fancy glass for their dinner and stuff, and they would be excited about that. And it sounds really simple, but it made our dinner much nicer. It really made it more fun. I did lots of picnics with my kids. We would go on drives, different places, and just go places. A lot of them were free, go to the beach, but I made it into an occasion. I did those kind of things quite often. And it made me feel better about having another dinner that I had to prepare, right? Mm. It just upped the ante. We made it just a little bit more exciting. Small little baby steps that made things more interesting for everybody.
Yeah,
One
I
of the
was
things,
joking the other day with my sons because they're 10 and 14 now, and they have their own opinions and interests. And when they were younger and I was on my own with them, it was easy to sort of fit in some of the things that I like to do and take them along with me, because you can make most things fun for a toddler and a young
oh
child.
yeah,
So now it's a lot more difficult to plan time together, or for me to do the things I want to do when they're around, because they'll be like, Mom, I don't want to do that. No, so.
oh, I can remember struggling with that, and because I'd have to go to a meeting somewhere, and I'd want my kids to be with me and wait. They
Yeah.
had no part of that. There's nothing worse than a teenager with a surly look on their face.
Yeah, it's not fun for anyone.
No, no, and I had a lot of expectations for my kids to be a certain way or do certain things, and I've learned over the years to let go of a lot of those things. Doesn't help.
Have your children given you reasons to have to, or certain experiences in their lives that have made you step back and go, whoa, I gotta let this one go?
Oh, for sure, many times, and I can think of some of them are actually quite funny, and when I look back now, but it wasn't at the time. I can remember pulling my daughter when she was in grade 8. She would have been 15, I guess, 14 or 15, I don't know, but she was young, and I remember hearing that she was going to the tattoo parlor. And so I thought, oh boy. So I went to the tattoo parlor, and there she was, just in the chair. They were just about ready to work on her. And I'm like, give her the sign, like just pointed to go home.
You gave her the look, let her love the
Yeah,
sign.
and, it's like, so that was like one of those challenging, because I didn't think that was good. But you know what? She still loves tattoos, and she's now getting one that she had done when she was quite young, reworked. Do I enjoy tattoos? Thinking that she should cover her back like that? Not particularly. But she knows that. So now it's like we laugh about it. But it took a long time to get there.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that, your creativity and your fun, your spirit has been passed on through your girls and some of their experiences. So, when
Oh,
you
yeah.
start to see them show those traits, you have to honor them in a sense too.
Well, yeah. And my oldest, I mean, she's traveled quite a bit now. And I can remember she went to Thailand. I guess that must have been about 4 years ago. And she went with another gal, and they went on a group travel part. But after the group travel part, she went to Cambodia by herself. And I can remember friends telling me, oh, you're going to let her do that? I'm thinking, what can I do? She wants to do it. And the worst thing I think you can do is to translate your fears to your kids. Because
So
I knew
what
it
they
would
say, like
get.
with dogs, like when like they can't smell, they can't see your fear. Is it like the same with your kids? They can't see your fear in most situations.
Well, I think that I think if you have fear, that you're really actually making your kids, they can sense that, and then they start doubting their decisions. Unless it's really warranted, I've learned to let go of some of my fears and turn that into thinking about the possibilities for her. Because if I'd have done that and worried about her going there, she wouldn't have experienced that trip.
Hmm.
And going there, really, she came back totally energized and really grew as a person by doing that experience. She was fine.
So it sounds easier said than done. I just let go of my fear of my child going, across the world. Were there more practical, tangible ways that you've developed that in yourself? Like, do you have any mentors, or are you doing any kind of spiritual practice that has helped shape some of that thought
I,
for you?
yes, for sure. I do a lot of journaling. I've been journaling now for a number of years. I guess before I became a coach, it was the Artist Way program, meditation. I'd done a lot of things to develop myself. And it took me a long time to get really good and comfortable with journaling, to be honest. But journaling is one of the places where I can speak to my soul, that I can really talk to my inner self without the critic being there. And I can write down everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then just let it go and keep parts of it. So journaling's helped me to see that,
Hmm.
because I really want to empower my kids and encourage them and encourage others, everyone. I think we all could use more of that. And if you're thinking and worrying, that's just fear. And when I think those thoughts through my kids, I'm pulling them back. I'm not believing in them.
Hmm.
And that's not helpful.
So where do you draw your inspiration from? Do you have a favorite quote or saying that has got you through some difficult times, or that continues to,
Well, there's quite a few of those.
Yeah. Well, what's the first one that comes to mind?
I guess be the change you want to see is one of the things that I would really take on. I've always lived that way, or that's my purpose, is to live more that way. If there's something you don't like, be the change you want to see. Mm-hmm. And I see that even with clients. If there's two people that aren't getting along, no one tells you. If only one person changes, a lot of times the whole relationship can change.
Absolutely.
Does not always have to take two. Even in companies, I find that this happens all the time. Mm-hmm. So be the change you want to see. The other thing is that this too shall pass.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. My dad used to always say that, and that was really powerful for him because he was in the Navy. And so their captain of the ship used to say things like that, this too shall pass. And so, and I think of him when I say that.
I feel I catch myself saying that in the practice a lot with some of the young moms with young children, because those days can be so exhausting. The kids need you 24/7, whether they're nursing or sleeping or feeding, and it can be so demanding. And when your children get older and you can look backwards, you say, okay, those years seem like so exhausting, and they seem like they're so long when you're in them. But in the big picture, there's such a blip in the whole parenting journey.
Yeah, and one time I went to a class, or heard this fellow speak about parenting once when I was young and my kids were young, and he said parenting is all about creating memories. And he said, it doesn't happen when you think it's going to happen. It can be, the best memories can be created in some obscure place that you never thought it was going to happen. And he gave an example. I remember he said he was in a park with his son in this big tunnel type thing. And he said they had the best experience in that tunnel. And he could never, ever have imagined that. Mm-hmm. And that being a parent is about creating memories. And I think that's the most powerful thing I ever learned as a parent. It's about creating memories.
Who have been some of your strongest influences on being a mother, do you think?
Oh, I think my mom, for sure. My mom, she's a really cool woman, and she's the kind of person everybody always loves. But she was always working hard. She was like the best multitasker I've ever met in my life. She could be doing closing deals. She was a real estate broker. She could be doing that, and she'd have the dinner in the oven on the timer, and she'd have everything all going. And she never seemed to be fazed by it. I don't know how she did it. I really don't.
Well, it's probably what's similar to what you're saying, right? You've got that same, that was modeled for you, and that's exactly what you recreated with your girls when you went through the divorce and rebuilt your whole life. You managed many things all at once.
Yeah, but she was always there for us. We always knew that. If you had a challenge, you could go and you could talk to her. But just a very peaceful person. Even as a grandmother, she was like that with my girls. I remember one of my, Lindsay had, remembers Grandma knew something that she'd done wrong, and Grandma never said a word. Grandma just looked at her, and that was it. Yeah. That was powerful, more powerful than anything she could have said.
Mm-hmm. So it must be difficult. You mentioned earlier, being in that sandwich phase where you're looking after your mother now, as well as having adult children. Can you talk a little bit about what that's been like for you?
Well, I guess that's one of the most trying times in life. I mean, I'm very blessed. Don't get me wrong. I still have my mom, and Mom's 83 now, and she's in long-term care, and she has advanced dementia. So it's really, difficult to watch somebody go through that disease. And being a caretaker and looking after her was not an easy process, for sure. Mm-hmm. She was living on her own, and the dementia progressed, and it took more and more of my time. And I think if I had done things differently, easier. But at the time, I really didn't understand what we were headed for. I guess that's hindsight is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. So what kinds of things would you have done differently with regards specifically just to your mom, or with regards to, your motherhood in general?
Well, I think I probably would have brought in more support. support.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we didn't know. One thing that I am thankful for is Mom and I had some tough discussions because she knew that she had dementia and that it was only going to get worse. And so we were able to have some really good conversations. And I remember sitting down with her and saying, well, what do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
What do you really want to do while you still can? And her and I went on a trip to Alaska, and that was one of the things she wanted to do. And we had such a great time. I had to keep track of her the whole time. Couldn't let her out of my sight, but it was young in that way. Not that she was, but we had a lot of fun together.
Well, it doesn't sound like an easy time, and certainly something that I feel a lot of moms go through at different stages, right? We get so focused on our young children, and then all of a sudden things shift, and you've got young children and aging parents.
Yeah, well, my kids grew up and they were on their own, and then I started to having more challenges with Mom. And not that I regret any of that. I just wish now it could have been a little easier if I'd had more support. And I didn't realize how quickly her illness was going to accelerate. You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But, I would get calls and I'd have to take her to emerge, and we'd sit there for most of the night and it just really disrupted my business and the rest of my life. It's what a lot of us are going through right now at my age.
Would you say overall, motherhood, life in general, either has been what you expected it would be?
I would say life has turned out very different than what I ever thought it would be. Completely different. I'm working now as a coach. When I was building costumes and mascots, I had no idea that I would ever become a coach. No idea at all. But yet everything that I went through is what has brought me to being a great coach. I really went through a lot of overwhelming situations in life, and I've learned so many things from going through that experience that now is the gift that I can help other people with. You never know where you're going to end up. It's not over yet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you work with a lot of people and a lot of women I know too. Do you think women can have it all? Do you think moms can have it all?
I'm sure. But I think it's like there was a fellow that I worked with a long, long time ago, and he always, and I didn't get it at the time, he always said there's a price to be paid for everything. And I can remember looking at him thinking, yeah, right. But that has stuck with me forever. And I think sometimes yes, you can have it all, but you have to be careful what you really wish for, because you may get it. Mm-hmm. So really think it through. And I think sometimes that's the value of having a coach or an outside person to really help you see what you really want. Well,
and I think sometimes even to remind you of all the good that you are doing. I mean, excuse me, that's part of the reason we started this podcast, is because what I was seeing in my office every day are women and men too, that are feeling overwhelmed, that are feeling like, they're my little one whose child isn't sleeping, or being a fussy eater, or feeling overwhelmed with work and family life. And the truth is, it was repetitive. Every person came in was saying the same story. And what I would see as an objective, professional is, you know what? Your kids are loved. You're eating great. They're growing. They're thriving. But when you're in it, you can't always see that, right? So having someone, a coach or a mentor, someone who can see your life from the outside in, can be highly valuable.
Yeah, and I think that, it's exactly as you said, Melissa, because I think we're so hard on ourselves. And the real goal is to be finding more peace. It's really about peace, and it's not more things that matter. Nobody's going to be passing this earth and wishing they'd had more things.
Right.
They can make your life comfortable, but they're not what it's all about. It's the pursuit of happiness and making those memories and feeling peace every moment, which brings us the joy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And talked a lot about creating memories with your girls and making fun with everyday experiences. And I know that you've had, some challenges with them as well. Did you have any times when, a decision you made on your daughter's behalf, or how you were choosing to raise them, was met with any kind of challenge from anyone else, whether it was friends or family members or strangers even?
Oh, yeah. I found that my kids during challenging times would tell other parents stories. I don't have no idea what exactly they told me, but it would be other parents would come and they'd want to interfere and get involved when they really had no right. And they were just like busybodies that wanted to get involved, and they would make situations worse. And it was awkward for me because I didn't want to alienate my daughter's friends, but it was awkward sometimes. Yeah, it made me feel uncomfortable. I was the only parent. A lot of other people weren't single parents, so it felt really different. And they were in that mode of trying to prove that they were right. It was awkward for me. So I learned.
How did you deal with that? Because a lot of parents, consistently get feedback, criticism, from people who are well-intentioned.
It was really tough. I remember there was a couple people that made me feel really uncomfortable and doubt myself. Even though I think what I would do now would be really to listen to my intuition. I questioned it in those days. I wasn't totally sure of myself. But listening to that voice in your heart really always tells you the truth. It's just to be able to quiet yourself enough to hear that, to get past your ego and the whole being right and the ego thing.
Absolutely. And, there's no shortage of information for moms these days, right? I mean, there's the internet, there's books, there's friends, there's speakers, there's events. And I'm always saying to moms, take all that information in, but at the end of the day, quiet your heart, quiet your mind, and just really listen to what's the right thing for your family, because what's right for your family might be different for Jane's family or Melissa's family. And your instincts and your heart always knows the right thing for your child.
Yeah, and so that your kids know what's right for them too on some level. And if they're going to choose to do something destructive or a path you don't think is right, they'll figure it out. That's the challenge. They're going to go and they'll have to do some things. That's part of growing up. And they grow from all those experiences.
Yeah, and I mean, you can say that now because your girls are older and they've had that experience. So I think that's truly valuable for our listeners here today.
Well, they still do crazy things. I know my daughter a year ago, she phoned me. She went to Cuba. She was on a vacation, went there by herself just for the heck of it. She's in Cuba, and she calls me on her phone, right, through Skype or whatever, and she says, "Mom, I'm just calling you to tell you I'm just going to jump off a mountain." Okay, I'll let you know if I land okay. Bye.
It's evolving. The journey of a parent is constantly shifting and evolving, isn't it?
And I said, well, how are you jumping off the mountain? Well, I'm jumping with this guy. He's done this parachute thing, and I'm holding on to him. And and then I don't hear anything.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, you watch your kids go through these experiences, and you think, oh, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, but the part of the joy for her is to do that to me, is to stir it up.
Right. We're almost out of time here today, but I wanted to ask you, do you have any lasting sort of thoughts for moms? Anything that you wish you could have done differently with your girls?
I guess just don't try so hard. Things always work out. Things always work out. They really do. We get so tied up in worrying about things, and that's the worst thing we can do. If you can really learn to quiet your mind, slow it down, and start thinking of positive thoughts. Think about what you want, not what you don't want. Because I found for myself, I was so worried for years and stressed over everything, and I couldn't change it. So I just had to let a lot of that go, and that took me a long time to figure that out.
I think that's a great message that you shared with our listeners today. The whole, letting go of your expectations for your kids and the fear for your kids and reshaping those thoughts into something much more positive for everyone.
And you do that with everything, even your positive, looking at if you have a job that maybe it's not exactly what you want, but you have a job, start thinking about the positives and maybe what you really want in a job, and it'll come to you. And I think we get so tied up in the worry over things, worry over money, worry over relationships, worry over so many things about being good enough. There's tons of things. And being a mom is the biggest job of all.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for your time today, Jane. What's a great way for people to connect with you if they want to follow up with any questions or feedback or to work with you for some coaching?
The best place to find me is on LinkedIn.
Okay.
LinkedIn, or they can give me a call. I always happy to have a complimentary session to people and see if, even if it's not something you want to pursue, I know I can give you some help in one session.
Okay. Well, and your contact information will also be in the show notes on the page, so we'll be sure to connect people with you. Thanks again for your time. I hope you have a creatively fun day today.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Alrighty. Thanks, Rockstar Melissa.
There you have it, a great story today from a mom who rocks. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Be sure to head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. When you do that, I'll be sending you a copy of my top 10 tips for moms. These are some of my personal practical strategies I believe that as women we can all benefit from and help us be emotionally and physically as healthy as we can be. When you're also there on iTunes, I would also love it if you left a review. It's really important to leave some reviews because that helps other people find the podcast, and it helps inspire them to listen and potentially gain some insight from the podcast. Tell other moms that you know would benefit from this show, or most certainly nominate them and let me know who you think I should be interviewing. I'd love for you to connect with us on Facebook as well. Head on over to Everyday Rockstar Mom and join our community there. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.